we go.
Nice and tight. Yep. All right. Okay, let's do it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Da Vinci Tree Academy's online learning. We're in week 2, day number 5. And for our announcements this morning, we're going to be cutting over to Coach Fryer. Coach Fryer has some stuff to show us on the other side of the school campus having to do with our fences. So, all right, take it away, Coach.
Hey guys, good morning again. It's Coach Fryer here coming to you from the playground in front of the Curie building. As you can see right behind me, we got some of our awesome green mesh going up along this fence, along the back gate in our property. That's gonna help you guys get some more privacy as we're playing at recess or doing whatever out here. You're not gonna be able to see through the fence. That's actually gonna be going at all the fences on our entire property. So we're working on that for you guys, and we should have it done for you by the time we get back to school. So I hope you guys are staying safe and having a great break. We'll see you back soon. Stay up on your homework. Check online. Bye.
Thanks, Coach.
That's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, the mesh is up. We have some privacy, so there's no
nice.
No horses looking at us.
And we won't have any kids climbing over the fence or anything at this point?
I don't know. Will we, Toby? I'm sorry. Yeah, that's okay.
Charlie?
Yeah, Charlie. Toby.
Okay. Hi, guys.
Yeah, hi.
Hope you're looking at us.
Yeah. Okay, let's get back to it. So, Miss Kimmy, would you tell us all a joke?
Well, you know, I asked my watch if it had a joke for me, but it said it would tell me one, but it would be secondhand. Oh, that's so bad.
Because it's a watch. It has 2 hands.
No, sorry, you guys.
Let's keep going.
So sorry. All right, let's just go to the pledge.
That's what the joke is. Everyone.
All right, pledge time, guys.
Go ahead.
Okay. Oh, hats off. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Miss Kimmy. It is the end of our second week of doing this. You know, we just want to say that we hope that y'all are having a good time at home and that everybody is staying healthy and happy.
Stay off the video games.
Oh, you know that's not going to happen.
I know.
Yeah. Anyway.
I'm dreaming.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, guys. Let's
guys.
get to class. All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the agenda for every day this week. So I just put a little infinity sign on the day, and so I will probably just drop this little clip into the beginning of every day. So every day, I hope you're doing well. Every day, I hope that you are staying healthy, and every day, I hope that you're doing your homework. All right. Anyway, let's get to the lesson. All right. Okay, today is week 2, day 5. It is our last life skills lesson of this week. And as you already know, we are discussing the paradox of life being both long and short. Yesterday, we started using that information to our advantage, because just knowing that something is what it is does not benefit you at all unless you come up with a way to allow it to benefit you. And so yesterday, with the knowledge that all of our lives are long, we started talking about things that you could do today, yesterday, to make that information benefit you and your experience. So because life is long, I asked you yesterday to think about ways that you could be patient with others. Because as we said yesterday, patience is a skill, not something that you're born with. It's something that you must practice and develop and get better and better at with age. And patience is also something that you can be working on even now. You don't have to go outside to be patient. You don't have to be with a large group of people to be patient. Other character traits like bravery. Bravery is something that can be practiced and put into effect when you're in a group of people and there's trouble, right? Bravery is something, it's a character aspect that needs to be It's a difficult one, we'll just say that. But patience is something that you can begin to practice every day, even now. I also mentioned about some of the homeless people I've worked with in the past. And the fact that these homeless people, many of them, not all of them, but again, I should say some of them, maybe even a majority of them, they lived life like life was very short. And life is short. But they lived a life not understanding that while life is short, it is paradoxically also long. And so the choices that they made were choices that would only be made if their life was very short, the choices that they made were choices that they would make and be successful with only if their life was very short. But because their life was long, they would find themselves in their 50s, 60s, and sometimes even a little later, being homeless and alone and without a system of support. And so it's important for us to live our lives every day knowing this paradox that life is both very long and simultaneously very short. So another thing that I want you to do today. Yesterday, we talked about growing patience with the knowledge that life is long. Today, I want us to use the knowledge that life is very short to make the best use of our time. Because life is very short, okay, our time is precious. Even the time now where you're stuck at home and you can't do all the things that you normally would like to do. Time is short for those of you in 8th grade because very soon you'll be going to high school. High schools will be opened and they'll be taking students just like they were last year and every year to come. And so life will go back to normal very soon, and it's important for you to be preparing yourself for high school. That's why these lessons are important, and it's important for you to pay attention. But these lessons are not that long. The videos that we make every day run close to about an hour for 7th and 8th grade. And after the videos are over and all the homework is done, you still have the rest of the day. So it's important that you make good use of that time because life is short. And the time that you have before you enter high school is also very short. So instead of just lounging around and instead of just watching television, you should find other activities. Now, it's important for me to acknowledge that that is not all you are doing. Many of you are spending a lot of your time helping your families right now. Some of you are going through some really hard times because your parents have recently split up or they're in the process of splitting up. Some of you are busy cleaning, you're busy moving. Some of you are busy trying to avoid being in the way. And well, again, so there's a lot going on out there. Some of you don't have to deal with any of that and you're just bored. But even for those of you who are going through more than just being bored right now, in your downtime, it would be beneficial if you could find a productive way to spend this time to prepare yourself for what is to come. Because sooner than you realize, this time of lockdown will be over and you'll be back to the fast pace of life, going to school and taking classes, worrying about the drama between friends. All of that will be coming back very soon. And so for the moment that you have now where everything is a little bit slower, because life is short, take that time and enrich yourself. Take the time to take care of yourself. Take the time to do something that perhaps maybe you normally wouldn't do. Find a book that you know that they are going to read in high school and start reading it now. Maybe for those of you who are religious, you can read your religious books. If you're Jewish, you can read your Torah. If you're Christian, you can read your Bible. For those of you who are Muslim, you can read your Quran. Find a way to use this time to improve yourself. If you are out of shape, there are ways and things you can do right now to help give yourself a more healthy body. You can exercise at home. You can do push-ups. You can do sit-ups. You can run in place if you're not on the 2nd floor or 3rd floor in your apartment, okay? there are things that you can do now, living in isolation, that will make good use of the time to help improve your long-term health. So whatever that is for you, because life is short and this time will be over so soon, even though it feels like forever at times, take the time to take care of yourself and do things that will benefit you moving forward. Because again, before you know it, this is going to be over and you're going to be back to normal life. All right, that's it for our life skills for this week. It's time for us to move on to social studies. Thank you for watching. All right, I kept everything on the board from yesterday up here. And so let's go ahead and review what we talked about yesterday. Miss Kimmy is working away in the corner still. So everything is as it was yesterday.
Yep, we're right here.
All right, let's review the new vocab. So first we had the idea of liquidity. Liquidity is the ability of something to be sold and then turned into like cash money. And in a lot of places we call this liquid money. That's where the term liquidity comes from, okay? Secondly, scarcity. This concept that things that have, actually, it could be anything. Things have value because they are in demand and they have a limited supply, okay? So yesterday we were talking about things that have no value for any right-thinking person, but yet were sold for outrageous prices, okay? I opened by using the idea of a fidget spinner, and then we went back a generation, talked about pogs, and then we went back another generation, we talked about pet rocks, okay? So these are things that really have no practical value, but were being sold for obscene amounts of money because they were scarce, because they had scarcity, and that gave them value. Now, for today, I want to illustrate that scarcity applies for things that have intrinsic value as well. So just because something has some practical value doesn't mean that it's not affected by scarcity. In fact, things that have practical value are often more affected by scarcity. Let's talk current events. Let's talk toilet paper. Woo, toilet paper.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah, so toilet paper
Especially
is
good toilet paper.
good toilet paper. Good toilet paper.
Man, you can get all the crappie you want. It's like that.
That's true. It's very valuable, okay? If you don't think it's valuable now, wait a day. It's valuable, okay? So toilet paper is extremely valuable for practical purposes, and normally it's not something that we have to think too much about, okay? Normally toilet paper is kind of everywhere. You can walk into a Walgreens, you can go into a grocery store, you can go into any big box store that maybe is not an electronics store, and they probably either sell it or they have some in the back that you can use if you need to, okay? Toilet paper has a lot of practical value. But because recently of COVID-19 and Americans buying toilet paper like it was the toilet paper apocalypse, okay, toilet paper has become very scarce. And because toilet paper has become very scarce, you see people on the internet selling a roll of toilet paper that would normally cost $1 and it's going for $20, okay? So the price has been jacked up because of the limited supply, okay? Toilet paper, is it valuable? Yes, it is. Not very valuable, but it does have value, okay? Is it in demand? Yes, it is. You and I use it, hopefully, on a daily basis, okay?
We're expected to.
Yeah. Now, normally, we don't have a limited supply. Normally, the supply meets all of our needs. But because recently we've had such a limited supply, because of the rules of scarcity, it has become much more expensive, okay? So scarcity applies for things that have no practical value and things that have extraordinary practical value. So it works for both, okay? So it's important to understand that. All right, next concept of the day, inflation. New vocab, inflation. Inflation. Now, inflation is really complicated, okay? There's no way that I can fully explain and do a really good job teaching all the aspects of inflation in one 10-minute current events video. It's not going to happen, okay? But it is important to understand kind of the basic concept behind inflation, okay? So, And Miss Kimmy, you check me to make sure that this is easy to understand.
All right.
For inflation, I would say a very simple definition would be more supply, okay, leads to less scarcity, leads to lower prices or maybe less value. Okay. So, oh, you can see my head. That's cool. Okay. So, let's talk about fidget spinners. Years ago, I gave the story about my kiddo buying a fidget spinner for like 25 bucks. Okay? And then later on, when the supply of fidget spinners wasn't so limited, and you could buy fidget spinners at any pharmacy or drugstore for, you know, like two for $1, okay? You couldn't sell a fidget spinner for $25 anymore because they were everywhere. The supply had increased, and so when we have more supply, we have less scarcity, which leads to less value. Ms. Kimmy, what do you think of that? Is that a good way to explain
No,
it?
I think that's perfect.
Okay. So kids, inflation works for everything. Okay? Well, everything that you can buy, I should say. Inflation works for everything that you can buy. All right? But inflation also works for money itself. Let me say that again. Inflation works for everything that you can buy. Okay? But inflation also works for money itself.
So that's why you can't just go out and produce more money, right, Mr. Ron?
Ding, 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 Miss Kimmy is right. Kids, when we have a recession or a depression, we can't just go starting to, the government cannot start printing all the money that it would like to print, because if it prints too much money, we have more supply, which leads to less scarcity, which leads to the money itself, the dollar itself, becomes less valuable. Okay? Quick example, all right? For those of you, we have a lot of you who go back and forth or have family in Mexico. Years ago, 1 Mexican peso, okay, so years ago, we have, I think it's MXP, is that Mexican peso, right?
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay, so years ago, 1 Mexican peso, 1 MXP, okay? 1 Mexican peso, actually no, let me say 10 Mexican pesos. 10 pesos equaled 1 American dollar, 1 USD or US dollar. So years ago, this was the case. We had 10 Mexican pesos would give us 1 US dollar. Now, over time, the economy in Mexico has changed. The Mexican government has printed more and more money. And so today, if you go to Mexico, it's different. I think it's closer to 20. So today, 20 Mexican pesos, 20 MXP equal 1 US dollar. Now, it's not quite 20, it's close though, okay? And so that's because over time, the supply of pesos has become higher. There's more and more supply of pesos, leading to less scarcity, leading to less value. And so the Mexican peso is worth not as many US dollars because there's so much more supply, okay? And so kids, this is the last lesson for current events for the week. I hope that you learned something important here. Again, these are all economic ideas that have a lot of relevance today as we are entering a new economic phase, a new contraction. All right, time for history. Today is your tests. Week 2, day 5, Civil War history. Today is the test. Your test is posted. It is a downloadable link below. Good luck, everybody. And because you're doing this from home, there's absolutely no way for me to make it open note. So this test is open everything. Take your time, get it done. If you are my student, take the test and email it in. I'm going to put 2 emails below, one for me and one for Mr. Barbero. I want you to email it to both of us so we can both get it. I may or may not be around to grade it because I will be taking care of a new baby. Yeah, so please take the test and email it in to us, and good luck. Okay, this is literature, week 2, day 5. This is the last day of our week, and to be honest, this is the last real chapter of 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea. The chapter after this is simply called the conclusion, where it kind of wraps up loose ends, but this is like the last chapter of real storytelling. So, after the events from yesterday's chapter, the massacre, Captain Nemo sets the ship on a course that takes it close to England. They're kind of wondering whether they're going here or there. They are kept below decks a lot. Ned Land is falling into a depression as well. He might even be a little suicidal. They're concerned for him. Captain Nemo is as weird as ever, and we're not sure what's going on with him and his attitude. And so they make the decision. It's go time. Time to leave the ship. And so I think it's Ned Land. He hurries into the room when he figures out where they are, and he wakes up the professor, and he's like, hey, Conseil and I, we're ready to bust out of here. We gotta go tonight. Tonight is the night. And the hour of their departure is 10 p.m. And so Professor Aronnax takes the day to kind of soak in his environment. He spends some time collecting all of his things. He puts on his very warmest clothes because he knows they're going to head north, and it's going to be chilly. And he spends some time looking at the museum pieces in Captain Nemo's collection. And the hour is approaching, and finally it's time. It's 10 p.m. And to get to the skiff, he has to go through the salon. But in the salon, he hears Captain Nemo, and Captain Nemo is playing the organ. And since Captain Nemo's playing the organ, and it's late, and the lights aren't really on, Aronnax is hoping that he can make it through the salon without Nemo noticing, because he knows if Nemo sees him, Nemo's going to know what he's doing. And so he's listening to the organ, wondering if he can get by. Captain Nemo's there, and he's just playing. He's playing away softly with this like very kind of like sad music. And so Aronnax goes for it, and it doesn't work. Captain Nemo catches him, and Captain Nemo calls him out. And instead of trying to really play it cool, Aronnax like runs, and he runs to the skiff, and he gets in there, and he finds Ned and Conseil there, and the alarm is sounded, and Ned hands him, I think, a knife, and in all the confusion, they're worried about being caught when they realize the alarm and all of the scurrying activity is not for them. They have walked straight into a maelstrom, or like an underwater, like whirlpool tornado kind of thing. And everything is moving, the Nautilus is shaking, and before anything else happens, like you kind of wonder, hey, was this an accident, or did Captain Nemo maybe have a death wish, and did he guide the Nautilus into this giant maelstrom? Because I mean, like, he knows so much about the ocean, he had to know that this was there, right? And so, just as this is all happening, Professor Aronnax, bam, he smacks his head on something, and he loses consciousness. And that's the end of the chapter. Now, your homework for this weekend is to finish the book. There's only one more chapter in this book, and let's read it. So your homework for this weekend is to finish the book, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, and read the conclusion. Give it a second to make sure it's recording. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, it is science class, and this is week 2, day 5. As promised yesterday, today is just a review. We are going over Newton's 3 laws of physics, or 3 fundamental laws that are the basics for physics. We have already studied law number 1, and we reviewed it in a video yesterday. And again, remember, the 3 laws are the law of inertia, okay, the force, the law of force. Force equals mass times acceleration, and action-reaction. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So again, yesterday we were just reviewing that inertia, again, objects at rest tend to stay at rest. Objects in uniform motion, or objects in motion, tend to stay at motion unless acted upon by an outside and unbalanced force. And so today we are going to be doing the review for Newton's second law, which is acceleration equals, force over mass, okay? So let's go ahead and jump in the video. Yesterday I incorrectly referred to this really cool nonprofit as Fusion Education. It's Fuse. It's Fuse School, actually. I apologize for that. Now, of course, when you're watching the video here, it's a recording of the video. And so yesterday and today, I'm putting the original video link in the show notes. I highly encourage you to check them out. They have some really cool stuff, and you will be seeing more from their channel here because, again, like we said yesterday, they're a super cool nonprofit, and just like our school, which is a nonprofit, everything that they do is put in the Creative Commons, so it can be used and reused for the benefit of people like you and me everywhere who are studying this stuff. All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look at today's review video over Newton's second law of motion.
In this video, we're going to learn about and practice applying Newton's second law in calculations, relating force, mass, and acceleration. You have just thrown a ball, and it's travelling upwards, neglecting air resistance. What force or forces are acting on the ball? A, the upward force from your hand, B, the downward force of gravity, or C, both of these? The answer is just the downward force of gravity, which gradually slows the ball, stops it, then brings it back down, making it fall faster and faster. The unbalanced force here causes the ball to change its velocity. Now look at this ball thrown sideways, but with elastic attached. The force on the ball must be towards the hand, caused by the piece of elastic, which slows it down and then brings it back to the hand. This is just like the ball thrown upwards, except that it's the force from the piece of elastic that slows the ball and then brings it back. What else could happen to an object when subjected to an unbalanced force? When forces are unbalanced, objects can speed up, slow down, like the thrown ball, but also change direction. Think of trying to change your direction on a muddy football field. Normally, you dig your boot into the ground to provide the force to change your direction. But in the mud, you just carry on in the same direction, and you call it a skid. The larger the mass of an object, the larger is the force needed to change the direction or its speed. Think of trying to push a car compared with a bicycle. Also, the faster you want something to get moving, the bigger the force needed. Think of pedaling a bike. The harder you push, the quicker you get going. The relationship between force, mass, and acceleration is known as Newton's second law of motion. It can be summarized in this equation. Resultant force equals mass times acceleration. When force is measured in newtons, mass is measured in kilograms, and acceleration is measured in meters per second. A spacecraft with a mass of 7,150 kilograms accelerated away from the International Space Station towards its re-entry point with an acceleration of 2 meters per second relative to the International Space Station. Calculate the resultant force on the spacecraft. Pause the video and work it out. How about this example? A car of a mass of 1,200 kilograms starts moving and accelerates on a racetrack. The car's engine produces a constant force of 3,400 newtons. A constant frictional force of 400 newtons acts on the car. Calculate the acceleration of the car. Pause the video while you work it out. Now calculate the force required to make an 800-gram toy car accelerate at 8.2 meters per second. Take care with the units. And the mass of an object accelerating at 0.8 meters per second when a resultant force of 200 newtons acts upon it. So why do you think you can throw a tennis ball much faster than a shot put? Because the force from your arm is the same, but the mass of the shot is much bigger, so its acceleration will be smaller.
If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. Comment below if you have any questions. Why not check out our FuseSchool app as well? Until next time.
Yep. So anyway, thank you to the folks over at FuseSchool who make these super cool videos for us. That's it for this week. Maybe if there were any questions that you had not answered yet that you can answer now because of that, go ahead and make sure that you answer those on your worksheet. Please save your worksheet because the worksheet will be useful all next week. By day 5 of week 3, we should have the worksheet all just about completed. All right, hey, well, thank you very much, and it's time for us to head on over to math. Week number 2, day number 5. I miss you guys. This is it's boring doing math this way, There's nobody dancing in the back of the class that I can, laugh at, All I have is my dog out there. Anyway, it's getting late, and I want to introduce you to a totally new idea that we haven't covered yet. Hey, be quiet, Lupo! I'm trying to teach a class. Sorry if that was too loud for your audio. So today we're trying to learn about the Pythagorean Theorem, if my dog will be quiet. Let me go shut the window. There we go. I feel a little bit bad doing that, but it's all good. Okay. So for Pythagorean theorem, it is this awesome formula that only works for right triangles. Now remember, a right triangle is a triangle that has a right angle on the base, okay? So a right triangle, oops, that's from yesterday. A right triangle is a triangle like this, okay? Now pretend this is a perfect 90-degree angle right here, and we signify a 90-degree angle on our triangles like that with a little loop-de-doop thing like right there. That means, this means right triangle. Whoops. I'm so excited, I'm nervous. I can't write properly. Okay, so that means right triangle. So this only works for our right triangles, okay? And so the way this works is when we have a right triangle, okay? Now a triangle, as you may already know, has 3 sides, okay? We have side A, side B, and side C, okay? So not trying to pull any tricks on you, just A, B, and C, those are the sides, okay? And here's the way this formula works. For any right triangle, A squared plus B squared will always equal C squared, okay? Now let's talk about a couple caveats to this. Okay, so this Pythagorean theorem, that's what it's called, made by this Greek guy Pythagoras. Okay, it always works, but you have to make sure you're getting your sides right. Okay, the longest side has a special mathy name, and it's called a hypotenuse. Hypotenuse. Something like that. Okay, hypotenuse. Okay, so the hypotenuse is the long side. Okay, and the short sides, we can just call them sides for now. Okay, all right, so A and B don't matter. The part that really matters is your hypotenuse, okay, the long side. And so the long side is always C. Hypotenuse is always C. So in the A squared plus B squared equals C squared, C is always the long side. And these two both don't matter. And by don't matter, I mean they can be either way. Don't matter either way. Okay, so A squared plus B squared equals C squared. The C squared is always the long side. And these other guys, you can just mix them up. It's okay. Okay, so again, A, B, C. Let's do a new triangle. It's a little cleaner. Okay, okay, so here is my right triangle. So beautiful a triangle, Mr. Will. Why, thank you very much. I appreciate that, Demaya. You were very kind. All right, let's see here. All right, so we have A, B, and C. Okay, so again, A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Let me give you a basic example. Okay, if A equals 3 and B equals 4, okay, what does C equal? Okay, if A equals 3, so this side A over here is 3, this side B is 4, what is C? I don't know. What is C? Not sure. Okay, so let's do it together using my little handy-dandy Pythagorean theorem while we ignore my dog. Okay, so if you can hear him out there, I can totally hear him. So we have to plug in, for A, we plug in 3 because A equals 3. And for B, we plug in 4 because we're pretending that's 4 right now. Okay, all right, and so in this case, we would get 3 squared plus 4 squared equals C squared. Okay, so what is C squared? So it's going to be this squared. Okay, so 3 times 3 gives us 9. 4 times 4 gives us 16. Okay, and this will, whoops, that's not nice. Okay, there we go. This will give us something squared. All right, just like that. 9 plus 16 gives us 25. Okay, and 25 equals this squared. Okay, so now we know that C squared is 25. Okay, so 25 equals C squared now. Okay, all right. So, and maybe I'm treating you kids like babies. This is C squared. You're old enough to handle the truth of life that there's a C squared at the end of this formula. Okay. All right. So 25 equals C squared. Now, yesterday, was it yesterday? No, it was a couple days ago. We talked about roots and squares. Okay. I got to figure out what C squared is, and so I have to undo this square. I undo a square using a square root, and it works like this. Okay. I have to get the square root of 25 and the square root of C squared. Okay. Since the square root is here, or the square root undoes the square. Okay. So the square root undoes the square. So the opposite of a square root is a square. Now, as my students in my class will remember, I draw this line of fairness down the equal sign. So whatever I do to one side of the equation, I have to do to the other side of the equation. I have to keep it equal. So if I'm going to do like a blue square root over here, I have to do a blue square root over here. It's only fair. Math is always fair, even though life is not. All right, and then the square root of 25 is 5. So therefore, C equals 5. And so I know that C equals 5 now. So if A is 3, B is 4, C has to equal 5. Okay? Now, if I did a crummy job explaining this, let me go ahead and switch over to a book, okay? And in this math book, they have this really nifty little picture here, okay, that illustrates this exact point, okay? So if I have one side that's 3, you guys see that? That's a 3 side. And then this side is a 4. Excuse me, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, 3 squared is represented like this. Do you see the 3 squared? There's like squares all over here, okay? And that's a 9. And this is a 4, okay? And 4 squared is represented by this. It's 16. If I add up these two orangey red squares, all right, I get 25 blocks, all right? And 25 blocks just happens to be just the number of blocks to make a perfect square to fit on my hypotenuse over here, okay? So this is a visual representation of my hypotenuse of 5 squared. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 5 times 5 is 25. Again, 9 plus 16 equals 25. And that's how Pythagoras figured it out. He took a normal square like this, and then he was like, oh, hey, if I add a bunch of squares on the side of the triangle, this side for any right triangle always equals all of these plus all of these, okay? So Pythagoras discovered a fundamental truth of life and right triangles, probably because he was bored. And if you're in my 7th and 8th grade class, you remember that boredom creates deep thinking, okay? All right, let's come back to my little iPad here, okay? All right, and so really quick, let's run through a few examples, okay? If I have a triangle like this, it's a right triangle because I have this goofy little thing right there, okay? And if this side is, let's say this side is 7, and let's say that this side is, I don't know, 6, okay? Remember, a squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay? And so I have to plug in maybe my 6 for a and maybe my 7 for b. So it turns out to be 6 squared plus 7 squared equals c squared, okay? I'm going to do my little line of fairness there. Nice. 6 times 6 equals 36 plus 7 times 7, which gives me 49, equals c squared. Hooray. 36 plus 49, I'm going to bring it on the side here so I can do it vertically. I get a 5 up there. 85. 85 equals c squared. Now, kiddos, you might be able to tell right away that 85 is not a perfect square. So I can't figure out what c squared is. But as you already learned about estimating, I can estimate it, okay? So I have to find some perfect squares. I have to say to myself, okay, 85, what's a perfect square that's less than 85? And what's a perfect square that's more than 85? Okay, well, 9 times 9 is 81, okay? And 10 times 10 is 100, all right? Now, is 85 closer to 81, or is it closer to 100? Well, 85 is a lot closer to 81 than 100, okay? Oops. And so when I'm estimating, 81 is 9, okay? The square root of 81 is 9, okay? And this is 10 squared. And so 85 is much closer to that 9 squared. So c squared is about, or I'm sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. When I do my, my square root here, okay, it undoes my square, okay? And so we discover then that 85 is close to 9, okay? Or I'm sorry, 85 is close, the square root of 85 is close to 9, so c is about 9. Gosh, I hope this is making some sense. I am definitely assigning the Khan Academy video on how to do this because their explanation, I'm sure, is like 100 times better than mine, okay? But anyway, so that's how we do this. And so on this specific triangle, c squared is about, so this side is about 9. So if I have one side that's 7, one side that's 6, this side would be about 9. Okay, I'll do one more example here, and then I'm going to leave you to your Khan Academy to finish off this glorious week number 2. Okay, here's my tall and skinny triangle. okay? And let's say that the bottom is 2, and this side is 8, okay? Now my hypotenuse is this side, okay? So that's going to be my c squared, okay? So that's the side I don't know that I'm trying to figure out using this beautiful thing, this beautiful equation. A squared plus b squared equals c squared, okay? And so I'm going to plug in my 8 for A, okay? I'm going to plug in my 2 for B, okay? And then I have to do 8 squared, okay, equals c squared. Nice. There we go. Okay, 8 times 8 is 64. 2 times 2 is 4, and it equals c squared. These together make 68, c squared. Okay, again, I need to square root both of these to find out what this side is, what my c side is. I want to know this side right here. Okay, so I have to square root them. All right, and so when I square root them, the square root cancels out the exponent there. Okay, the square root cancels out the square, so I'm left with c. And for 68, because 68 is not a perfect square, I have to estimate again. So I have 68, okay, and I have to figure out my perfect squares. So 8 times 8 is 64. 9 times 9 is 81, okay? Now, if you look at this, 68 is closer to 64. And so we need to figure out what 64 is. 64, well, like we just said, is 8 squared. 81 is 9 squared. Therefore, 68 is almost 8 squared, okay? If it doesn't directly equal, we have to write our estimating sign instead of our equal sign, okay? And so the square root of 68 is about 8, okay? There we go. So in this specific triangle, if we have 8 and 2, this would be about 8. Now it's bigger than 8, okay? Because 8 is the longest side. So we know it's bigger than, but we just have to estimate. Okay. All right. So that was how we do that. Again, it was a good review of how to estimate when we are doing square roots. So kids, if you want to get the exact answer, you are okay to use the calculator on your iPads. If you are not in my class and you don't have an iPad, feel free to use a calculator. Calculators are everywhere. You know, that's okay. But you do need to remember your perfect squares, okay? You need to remember things like 5 times 5 is 25, you know, 6 times 6 is 36. You need to have all those numbers completely memorized in terms of the math facts so you can do your quick estimations in the moment like we were doing just now, okay? All right, so we have a couple Khan Academy links that I need you to take a look at so you can learn it from a real pro rather than Mr. Roll on his iPad at night. It looks like it's, boy, it's dark. Anyway, I will see you next week for week 3, day 01, and we will be picking up with the Pythagorean Theorem. All right, have a great one, and this is, I guess, the end of your day because it's your math class. Take care. Bye. Oh, is it? Yep. Okay. End of the week, group 2. You don't have any lesson today. The video is profoundly shorter because of that. So, what was I going to say? Yesterday's work had all the answers on it. So for a grade, I want you to make sure that you are actually like doing the work, showing the work, take a photo of the work, and then email the work to Mr. Barbero. Okay? So again, do the work, show the work, email it to Mr. Barbero for credit. Okay? So you have the answers on there, so you know if you're doing it correctly. Since I'm not there to correct you or answer your questions in person, and since I'm probably like in the hospital with a new little baby right now, you know, the chance of that is slim. So I wanted you to have the answers. Okay, so today we have 3 word problems for you to solve on your own. So you got to do these all by your lonesome. And then once you're done with these 3 word problems, you don't have any more homework. So it's kind of nice. I left plenty of space on the PDF so you can just solve the problems using markup. You don't have to print anything out or anything like that. All right, so my algebra group, good luck on your thing. Please feel free to send me questions or comments or whatever. And I hope you all are staying healthy and well. Thanks.